Most people believe a racehorse explodes out of the starting gate because it's terrified. That explanation is probably wrong. Think about every race you've ever watched. The gate flies open, and half a ton of muscle launches forward with a violence that looks almost uncontrollable. It's easy to look at that and think, this animal is panicking. This animal wants out. That's the story almost everyone tells themselves, without ever questioning it. But here's the problem with that story. If it were really just fear, you'd expect the calmest, most well-adjusted horses to explode out of the gate the least violently. They don't. Some of the calmest horses in racing come out just as hard as the most anxious ones. So if it isn't fear driving that explosion, what is? By the end of this video, you're going to understand a mechanism that's been firing inside horses for millions of years. One so precise that it doesn't actually care whether the horse is scared or perfectly relaxed. And once you see it, you're never going to watch a race the same way again. To understand what's really happening, forget racing for a second. A horse, underneath all the training and the saddle and the finish lines, is a prey animal. Every part of its body was built around one priority: don't get eaten. Its eyes sit on the sides of its head, giving it almost 350 degrees of vision, built to catch movement from nearly any direction. Its legs exist for one job above all others: cover ground fast the instant something feels wrong. Its whole nervous system runs on a single rule: restrict its vision, restrict its ability to move, and alarm bells start ringing, whether or not there's an actual threat. Now picture what a starting gate actually is to that nervous system. A narrow metal chute, walls pressed against both sides, another horse's body inches away, vision partly blocked by bars, exactly one way out. This isn't a slightly uncomfortable box. It's close to the exact scenario a horse's body evolved to treat as the highest possible alert. But here's the detail almost everyone misses. If this were pure fear, you'd expect visible panic before the explosion, every time. Watch enough races and you'll notice that isn't what happens. Plenty of experienced racehorses walk into the gate calmly, ears forward, relaxed posture, no visible distress at all. And then, seconds later, the same calm horse detonates forward with exactly the same force as one that looked tense the whole time. That's the piece fear alone can't explain. A truly frightened animal wants to avoid the situation entirely. But what we're actually watching looks less like panic and more like a coiled spring, ready to release the moment the restriction lifts, regardless of what the horse was feeling emotionally a second earlier. This is where the biology changes everything. Inside that gate, a horse's sympathetic nervous system, the same fight-or-flight system found in almost every mammal, is doing something specific. Heart rate climbs, adrenaline and cortisol flood into the blood. Blood shifts away from digestion into the big muscles in the legs and hindquarters. Breathing gets fast and shallow. All of it is preparing the body for one outcome: a short, maximal burst of effort the instant the restriction disappears. And here's the part that should surprise you. This buildup happens even in calm, well-trained horses. Researchers measuring stress hormones around gate loading have found real cortisol spikes even in horses considered perfectly well-adjusted to the process. In other words, some level of this activation isn't fear, and it isn't a training failure. It's just what confinement does to this specific nervous system. Full stop. So when the gate opens and the horse launches forward, you're not necessarily watching panic being released. You're watching stored tension convert directly into action. In the wild, this exact mechanism lets a horse go from standing still to a full sprint in under 2 seconds the moment a predator appears. In the gate, the trigger isn't a predator, it's confinement, but the machinery firing underneath is identical. Now, not every horse experiences this the same way, and this distinction actually matters. Some horses do carry genuine chronic anxiety around the gate: excessive sweating in cool weather, refusing to load, repeated tail swishing, or teeth grinding. That's a different pattern, usually tied to a past bad experience or a naturally anxious temperament, and it deserves real attention, not the same explanation as the horse that's simply doing what its body was built to do. The two can look almost identical in the 2 seconds before the gate opens. The difference shows up everywhere else. One horse's tension disappears the moment the gate opens and never shows up anywhere else in its handling. The other horse's tension shows up everywhere, in the paddock, during grooming, around any tight space at all. That distinction is exactly why welfare conversations in racing matter. Reforming how we handle genuinely anxious horses is a real and important conversation. Assuming every explosive gate break is suffering is not the same conversation, and mixing the two up helps no one, least of all the horses that actually need help. So go back to that assumption you probably made every single time you've watched a race. That explosive burst out of the gate is fear. In most cases, it isn't. You weren't watching a terrified animal escaping something it hated. You were watching one of the oldest, most precise survival mechanisms in the animal kingdom, built for a predator that hasn't chased these horses' ancestors in tens of thousands of years, still firing exactly on cue the instant the door opens. The real skill isn't eliminating that response. It's learning to tell the difference between a horse whose body is simply doing what millions of years of evolution built it to do, and a horse whose mind is carrying something heavier that actually needs help. Either way, you're never going to watch that moment at the gate the same way again. If understanding what's actually happening inside a horse's mind interests you, there's a lot more of this ahead. Subscribe to keep finding it.